to the Wildflower Story Podcast. Every story matters.
Hi and welcome to the Wildflower Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Raj. If you're new around here, then let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm a big believer in the power of vulnerability. Vulnerability makes room for connection and commonality. It breaks down walls of assumption and apathy and helps someone to know that they're not alone in their struggles. While I love listening to women share their stories on the podcast, I believe it's important to have a man's voice on here from time to time. So today, I have the absolute honor of interviewing my dad. He's my inspiration and my hero. He's someone I admire in more ways than one. And one of the things I love about him is his ability to encourage people from a place of intention and honesty. So we'll be chatting a bit about how we can all do a better job at encouraging one another. He also chats about his role as a therapist and what he's learned about how important it is to be aware of the narrative you are telling yourself. This is just a regular conversation with my dad that you all have the opportunity to tune into. I hope you receive something from this conversation. It's not one to miss. Here's my convo with Simon Ruffalo. Hello, Dad. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jess. nice to be here.
It's just like a typical conversation that we
Just
have,
just hanging out
but with a microphone between
with a microphone, and we're not in a cafe.
True. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate the time, and I'm excited to talk to you today about some really cool things that I think people will enjoy learning about. So.
Well, I had a secret little quiet ambition that I'd one day make it on your show, so I'm very excited that you asked me.
And you know what's funny? When I asked you and you said, I think I've always secretly wanted to be on your show, and I'm like, yeah, I know, Dad. I know you have.
Yeah, she knows me.
Okay, most people know you, but for those who don't, what is one thing that some people might not know about you?
Yeah, I really enjoy classical music. That's one thing I love a lot of. As I've gotten older, I've really enjoyed listening to classical music. So can I add another one?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm a book nerd, so I do love reading. I've loved reading since my 20s, I think, or when I got married and I had to grow up really quick. Yeah, so classical music and reading books.
But not just any books, though. Hey, you have a particular type.
I don't like fiction.
Yeah,
I'm not into fiction. My wife, Vanessa, hates that I don't like fiction. But I did read 1984, which I did love. But I do love reading biographies, and leadership books, and a lot of books about God.
What are you reading currently?
I'm reading about 5 books all at once.
Gosh,
but
wow.
I'm kind of back and forth. So I'm reading...
Yeah, you're one of those people.
Yeah, I am. Is that annoying?
A little bit, yeah.
I'm reading one called God and Money, which is really good. I'm reading 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson. Nice. Just finishing that. And I'm actually reading the Bible every day. Yeah. So that's been really good. And cool. Yeah, I got a couple of other books kind of in and out that I'm looking at now.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and classical music, I think you've got me onto that now. And I love playing that for the girls.
Yes, it's good for their brains.
Yeah, I know, that's why I play it for them.
Yes.
Okay, so most people might know you, but some don't. So would you tell everyone a little bit about you, what you do, who's in your family?
Yep, so I'm married to my wonderful wife, Vanessa. Almost 30 years.
AKA my mother.
Yes, your mother, that's right. And we've been married for, getting up to 30 years. And I have 2 wonderful daughters, Jessica Raj and Isabella Richards, and 2 beautiful granddaughters, Willow and Alba. Sometimes I call them Wilbur. And so I love my family. I love Jesus. I play music. I'm a musician and I've been playing guitar for many years. And also the work I do, I'm a counsellor. So I work with people, also a pastor. So yeah, it keeps life's fun.
You have many hats.
I wear a few different hats, but generally it's around people.
Yeah.
I really enjoy being with people, spending time with people, talking to people, and doing a lot of listening.
And now you get to do some talking.
There you go. Wow.
But yeah, this is why I've got you here on the podcast, because for those who know my dad, he is one of the most encouraging people in the entire universe, I would say. But and I think it's quite rare for a male to be so encouraging and just speak life into people, and you do it so naturally, and that's just who you are. So growing up, I always felt so loved and empowered by you. You never hesitated to encourage and empower me, and I believe a lot of who I am today is because you chose to speak words of life over me from a young age. And I also love the way you talk about Mum, even when she's not in the room. So tell us, why is encouragement important for you to give?
Encouragement for me, it does come easy, I suppose, because I was encouraged myself. So mum and dad were encouraging, They always spoke, over my life and over our kids' lives, my siblings' lives. But I suppose for me, when I think about it, like, encouragement is so important. It is like oxygen for the soul for me. And it's kind of easy to do. For me, it's easy to do. It's like you speak words to people. And if it's coming from a right place, it's quite easy to encourage people. And I was just looking up, as I've been reading the Bible, I really love the scripture where it says, gracious words are like honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. So, gracious words bring life, bring healing. And also another scripture says, there's power, there's life and death in the power of the tongue.
Yeah.
And we can really hurt people by the words we say, and we can really build up and encourage people. So encouragement, is it a gift? To have some people have a gift of encouragement? Maybe, I don't know. But Barnabas was the son of encouragement. So I feel like it is something that I like to do, that I thrive on, that I enjoy encouraging people, and people generally respond to it well, and it's not fake. I also can speak the truth and harsh words when I need to.
Yeah. But,
when people know that, you're wanting them to do well and succeed, it's coming from a right place. So, I really love encouragement.
Yeah, and like I said, it just is, it's who you are, and I think a lot of people know you for that, and I love you for it. So tell us a bit about your childhood and the values that you learned as a young boy about how men should treat women, and how have you developed those values as you've gotten older?
Yeah, so Mum and Dad were, we had a Brady Bunch, my inverted commas, Brady Bunch upbringing. So Mum and Dad really did love each other, and Dad treated Mum really well, and Mum really treated Dad well, and Dad was a safe dad, to Mum, and so I learnt it was a safe house, and so the encouragement was in our family. They always encouraged us to do what we like to do, and I remember being a young musician wanting to pursue music and really take it seriously, and they encouraged me in that. Where some parents would go, "Oh no, get a real job," but they put their money where their mouth was. They bought me great equipment and got me lessons, and they encouraged me. Even when I got married young, maybe they were freaking out, but they so encouraged and believed the best. So what that taught me as an older person, as I came from that, so it was an atmosphere of encouragement in the home, so it reflected in what I was as an adult. And so as far as treating other people respectfully, respect was taught in my house, and helping people with words, speaking into their life, it can just be as simple. Can be simple, You did really good in that, that's, and I love doing that, When I'm at church and if I'm hearing, a great sermon or as a worship someone sings a great song or plays an instrument, I will send an encouraging text and say it was really good.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll say what they need to work on, but they know that I'm there for them. So I was raised in that, and it's helped me as an adult.
Yeah, and I remember you telling me about when you were a teenager and you were really insecure. And it's interesting that to be an encouraging person, to encourage, you actually have to think outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And think beyond yourself.
Yeah.
And think of others. So this is an offhand question,
Sure.
but what shifted? Like, is it because you got married young and you had to mature, within you?
Yeah. So I think the encouragement was always there, but the insecurity, I was also kind of an introvert and shy. So a couple of things, I think. The confidence in my music, that it was something that came to me really quickly and I developed. So that gave me confidence. So the insecurity shifted from there. And becoming a Christian, finding the reason why I'm alive gave me confidence.
Yeah.
And as David strengthened himself in the Lord, I found strength in the Lord, and God really revealed himself to me. So, and being, in a church that was encouraging also. So this shift came with a few things.
Yeah, that's good. So you are in the psychology field. So no doubt you have some expertise in how each person's self-esteem and self-efficacy are largely influenced by their family, particularly their parents, as you have told us about your experience. So in your expert opinion, and we're getting a bit formal here, why does the way we are encouraged or lack thereof determine a lot of who we become? And how can parents in particular do this better with their kids, especially dads with daughters?
Oh my
That's
gosh.
a lot in
Jessica,
one question. I'm sorry, but
big questions at me.
you're ready for it. So.
My expert opinion. Well, I'd never say I'm an expert, but in the work I do as a therapist, we learn. There's lots of research on lots of things, and when I thought about this question, I thought, well, how are we raised? And a lot of the time, the way we're raised, it affects our adult lives. So there's theories on what they call attachment theory. So the way you're raised with your significant caregivers, mum mainly and dad, if you're raised in safety, you're generally going to be a secure person most of the time. That's a big factor. It's not all the factors.
Yeah.
And if you were raised in a family where parents weren't there for you, or there was abuse or lots of things that were disconnected, then that has a flow-on effect as an adult. So when I fast forward as an adult, then you can get really affected from your upbringing. So the early years as a child, parents play a big role. So, and then in my counselling, I look at lots of adults who didn't have very good relationships with their parents, or they were, a parent wasn't around, or there was no safety in the house, and then they're really lost and they're really hurt and broken people because they didn't have those strong attachments. They didn't get the encouragement. Since we're talking about encouragement, and I work with lots of heartbreaking stories of, say, a woman who just, the dad wasn't around, so that that adult client that I'm working with, the female, is looking for love everywhere else and not finding it in the best places, and the early years of encouragement weren't there. So it has a big factor. Like, early parents, really be there for your kids, because it plays a big role.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
That's just one little area.
Yeah, and I'm learning a lot about the attachment theory and all the books you're giving me, which is a great help. Okay, so in your many years of church ministry, do you think men and women are treated equally? How can we do a better job at ensuring women are empowered to use their gifts well in serving God? Another big question.
Yeah.
I think an important one to ask.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could go many ways with this question, and even your first part of that question, treated equally.
Yeah.
What does equality mean? I mean, I could, under God, and we should be treating people with respect and value, and God sees men and women equally, and we definitely, we should treat people equally under God with the same value. Are men and women different? I believe they are.
Yeah.
They're made up differently. Biologically, they're different. There's differences, Are men and women treated equal in the church? I've seen women not treated well in church, but I've seen women treated well in church, We could do the whole equality thing as in, do we need what's called equality of outcome? What does that mean? Do we have 2 male pastors in the church? Do we need to have 2 females in the church for equality? Well, I don't believe that's the way we should go. But I definitely value women in the church, and we need their voices. We need their wisdom, and they bring so much to it. And I am saddened by women who are treated poorly and abused in churches. If they are oppressed, by males, and that's not all the case. There's a very big narrative out there right now that men are oppressive or churches are oppressive, and that's a narrative that, yes, there's glimpses of that, but it's not the whole thing, So I definitely, love females. I love being a safe adult, and I love being a safe pastor. I want to always be a safe pastor, and I grieve for women who have struggled, if they have been, had bad experiences by a male, in church. So yes, we've got to do better. And, as males, as older males too, we've got to treat our women respectfully, and we've got to have safe boundaries for them, and we've got to learn from women and use them where their gifts are. And their gifts are many, So we've got work to do, but I also believe we can't be influenced by the narrative of what's out there, as in toxic masculinity and things like that. I don't know, I'm kind of drifting a little bit. I'm very passionate about that. That's not the case. So women out there are many good, safe men out there. I know we get the media headlines, and I know we've experienced male authorities who have abused and who have done the wrong thing, but there's also many good males out there, and my heart is always to be a safe person, best as I can for females. I have a heart for young guys too who don't have dads around, but I also have a big heart for women who don't have their dads around or haven't had that father figure. So I can't be everything to everyone, but if God brings people into our lives, we want to make them feel safe and want to say, hey, you are loved and we believe in you. I believe in you as a male. And in my counselling practice, I will get a lot of women who have been through domestic violence. I know we've tucked away from church now, but
that's okay.
So I've worked with many women who have experienced domestic violence, and they almost, and they're in a grieving process, a lot of them, and they almost have this thing of, well, I don't trust any males anymore, and they become almost men haters. And I listen and I go, wow. And if I've spent some time with them and they started to see me as someone they can trust and go, okay, well, you're a male, and I can say, yes, there are good men out there. Please don't ever think they're all bad. So there's a lot in what I've just said, and we could go on, and it's not obviously, PC correct in some of it, but yes, I believe women, under God, we should be valued the same way, and there's definitely women in leadership. There's definitely women pastors out there. Yes, that's great, So lots to be said about that.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that men are mistreated as well in roles, not just women. And I guess I asked that question because I am a woman and just interested to hear a male's perspective.
Right.
But I do want to acknowledge that there are men who have been mistreated by leadership, by males in leadership or females in leadership. And this is not casting blame or anything. It's just having an open conversation about it, because I think you and I, well, I've been in church my whole life. You've been in church for
a long time,
better half of your life, and we see a lot and hear a lot, and I think it's just important that people know that church should be a safe place for everyone.
Yeah.
And we should, like you said, value both roles equally important, because that's how God created us to be. And I like the word uniquely as well, instead of, I probably should have rephrased that instead of being equally, but I like the word uniquely because I do believe that God has created women and men to have unique characteristics and giftings.
Yeah, and unique roles.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. It's something that was really powerful for me. In my counselling field, we do a lot of training. So I was doing training on domestic violence, and the narrative was so strong. And it's true that the statistics are that women do get, are more victims in domestic violence. But the training was very intense, and I walked out of there thinking, oh my gosh, all men are abusers. Like, the power of that narrative scared me. And I had to work through that and go, no, that's not true. Yes, there's definitely men perpetrators out there. And there are more men perpetrators out there. But I can't blanketly say then all men are abusers. I had to work through that. So that was really
being
powerful.
A man yourself.
Yeah. And that's the power of, even in the climate that we're living in now, where there's really big narratives of, toxic masculinity, white males, they're all bad, and hierarchies and all that. So we've got to be really careful. So people listening who may be caught up in all that, thinking, yes, men are all bad, I'm hoping not. I hope you haven't experienced that, listeners, but they're not all bad.
Yeah.
And please watch what you're listening to on the media and what you're reading. So I'm passionate about this.
Yeah, no, and I am too. And I think that's why I wanted a male voice on the podcast because, well, one, you're my dad, and you've always been a safe place for not just me, but a lot of my friends. And that has made me proud as your daughter, because I know that, one, I haven't experienced that, kind of instability growing up, and I'm so grateful for that. But I also know that so many women don't have the same experience, and so it's just important to hear someone who is a male and is a safe place for many people, and so that's why I wanted your voice on here.
Yeah. Can I just throw in one more thing?
Yeah, go.
So just with the church, look at all the amazing women that were in the Bible, and even, and I was recently listening to a podcast, and they were talking about the first person that Jesus, after he was risen, went to, revealed himself. It was Mary Magdalene. So there's so many powerful women in the Bible, and I love that. And God uses them uniquely in a way where their value is high and esteemed, and we need that in the church. And male leaders should honour the women in our church. Yes.
I agree. And I think what always astounds me about the Bible is that the lineage of Christ, if you look at all of the women, part of that lineage, they all had some sort of title, like a negative connotation to who they were. Like, look at Rahab, the prostitute. Ruth, the outcast, and then Mary, the Virgin Mother, and a few other women who I can't think of right now. But
Mary Magdalene.
Mary Magdalene. And it's just, it amazes me that God uses those women in such a powerful way to bring about Bathsheba. Another one.
True.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And that's just who God is. He works with broken people.
Yeah.
And so it's always important to have that lens of looking at people, knowing that we're broken humanity. That is who we are. But that's not the end of the story. That there are people who we're all made in the image of God, and it's important to recognize that and value people just as God does. And I know we went on a bit of a tangent there, but...
There you go. This is just a conversation.
This is just a conversation. A regular one we have in the living room.
Yes.
Okay, my last question for you is, I'd love to know how you as a husband in particular feel empowered by your wife, and what words of encouragement do you have for the women listening about how we can better empower our men?
You ask such good and detailed questions.
I know, that's who I am.
So, the way Vanessa is, the way she's given me the gift of trust, to trust. Now, the way we work in our relationship is, yes, we are husband and wife, we're a team. But in our biblical Christian marriage, me being the man, I take responsibility for our family. I take responsibility. I lead the family. Now, that doesn't mean, please, that's not saying male patriarchy, oppressor. No, that's kind of the order of things. But the way it works is Vanessa trusts that leadership. She believes in me. She encourages me, going, "Son, you can do that." And I want to sit under that. But we work things together. So it doesn't mean I make all the decisions and don't include her in anything. We work things out, and I use her wisdom and ask. So most decisions we work out together. But in the end, I want to take the responsibility. I believe God's called me to take the responsibility of the well-being of my wife and my family. So she's given me the gift of belief. It actually is a gift to go, I trust you. So that's empowering for me as a husband to know, wow, my wife trusts me. And in turn, I want to step up to that and go, yes. So that's not dominating. No. It's not oppressive. That's beautiful. And it works. And we work together as a team. So any big decisions, I always chat with Vanessa. And in the end, she trusts me to make that decision. And sometimes, most of the time we agree. Sometimes we won't. But we work it out and I'll make a decision. And it's wonderful. And, that's the wonderful thing about it. So my encouragement to women out there, a couple of things. My encouragement to women out there is allow your man to step up. Like encourage them to lead. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And men out there, step up. Take responsibility for your family. It's somehow God orchestrated that. And I know, the paradigm of the world can be a little bit different, equal rights and equality and all that. And that's an interesting thing. And this is, I work with female bosses and I love, I have many females that I've worked with who have been, female bosses in the jobs I've done. I love it. It's awesome. But in our marriage, that's the way we operate. It's the way God's ordained it. And so, yes, allow women, encourage your husbands to lead and men step up and lead.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I remember reading a book called The Power of a Praying Wife many years ago. A friend of ours, Julie Hall, referred it to me. And, being in the early years of marriage, it can be overwhelming and you are still working through your roles as a couple and how things work. And I remember constantly getting angry at Ash for things that were not in my control. And after reading that book, it encouraged me to just pray for him and to pray that he will start stepping up and being the spiritual head that he was called to be in our marriage. And you know what? Over time, I saw him transform, and it just made me realize, wow, we underestimate prayer so much. Right. And when we want, and it's such a stereotype, isn't it? We want our partner to change, but really there needs to come change within us first. Right. And for me, at least that's our story, that it was the praying that really shifted things in our marriage. So I just encourage any woman out there who's married and needs, who wants that change in their marriage, to start praying for your husband. And so thanks, Dad, for your wisdom on this episode. I really appreciate it, and I just appreciate you in general. I'm so thankful for your wisdom and just generosity in general. So I love you lots, and I hope this encourages people.
Thanks, Jess. And I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I'm proud and you're doing an amazing job. And get out there and subscribe to this and share it.
Thanks, Dad. So how about that for a regular conversation between dad and daughter? We got off on a tangent here and there, but I think that we had some important things to address, like acknowledging victims of abuse within and outside of the church, and remembering to not put people into a box because of your own personal experience with someone of the like. I saw a quote the other day by a guide named Grayson Bearden, and I think it's fitting for this conversation. He wrote on Twitter, "I'm sorry that the church hurt you. That was humanity, not Jesus." We need to remember that the church is not perfect, only Jesus is. And my prayer as the church myself is that we as the church will get better at emulating the grace and truth that Jesus is. May this conversation with my dad cause you to dig a little deeper and remember that humanity is flawed, all because of sin, but all the more reason to step out and lift others up with words of life. People thrive because of it. And I know that as a person who loves encouragement myself, I thrive from it too. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I would love it if you could subscribe to and share my podcast. These stories and conversations are to empower others who need a reminder about the power of their story. So I would appreciate your support. I'll be back next month for another episode. Ciao for now.